Hello and welcome to another episode of Codo Cinema, the podcast show where I talk about movies. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codo Man. For this episode, is still on the superhero genre. From my point of view, it's always good to talk. It's always good to talk about, especially with some of the more recent superhero movies that are coming out, especially from whether it's DC or Marvel. Although some of it has been more bad than good, or even so bad they're good. And one of the few examples would be from the DC Extended Universe, and that would be Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. For this episode, I'm not going to do this episode alone. I have Matt Lauterbach from Naperville Community Television to come in here and join me on this episode. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's great to be on here, Mark. I finally make it on to Kodo's Mojo here.
Codo Cinema.
Kodo Cinema. Sorry, that's your brother's thing. Kodo's Mojo is your brother's thing. Yeah, there's so many things you Kodo boys do. It's hard to keep a track of sometimes of what the name is for which.
Yeah. And Matt, you're not the only guest from Naperville Community Television to make an appearance on this podcast. Joe Kennedy actually made an appearance on one episode. If you probably might have heard the rumors.
I do remember it. I do remember seeing Joe post about that on social media. So I'm not the first, and I probably won't be the last.
That is true. Hey, you may not be the first, but you may not be the last.
That is very true. That is very true.
Now, Matt, a while back when you and I were at the station a while back, I think that was about almost 2 months ago. You and I we were talking about Aquaman 2.
Yes, yes, I believe that was right after I had just seen it in theaters, I believe. Um, I look, I actually saw the first Aquaman movie. I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it when it came out. I rented it on Blu-ray, and I actually like the first Aquaman. It was it was corny, but I respect it for what it was going for because it was going for those Saturday morning cartoon superhero vibes. I grew up actually watching a lot of those shows. Like I grew up watching those shows, so that was nostalgic for me, which is why I was really excited to see Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom.
Hmm.
And I saw that one in theaters. I went with a friend of mine. I saw that one in theaters, and I must admit I walked out pretty disappointed.
Ah,
Hmm.
I see. I mean, to me, I actually had low expectations with this movie, not just before seeing this movie, but actually while the movie was in production, because there were a lot of things going on, not just with
Yes.
Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom or Aquaman 2. I call it Aquaman 2 because obviously it's a sequel, but
Right.
with the direction of where the DC extended universe was going.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
for a couple things. One, this is the last film in the DC extended universe because James Gunn is starting a new DC universe with his own Superman movie, and and then of course, obviously, this film did was still in production when the pandemic was around, so this film was pushed back multiple times. It was supposed to come out in 2022, but it actually got pushed back to 2023. Few things considered: one, pandemic, and of course the visual effects in this movie. And then another reason I am a lot. And then another reason this movie had problems was obviously because one of the few other reasons was, you probably heard of the whole Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard situation that took place.
That was the big elephant in the whole room that I was waiting for you to mention because I that was the one thing that had me worried about it was how much Amber Heard were they going, because I I did like the first Aquaman film,
Yeah,
but but after, seeing all the stuff that Amber Heard got herself into, and that whole lawsuit and the whole decision in the trial between herself and Johnny Depp, when that all came out and Johnny Depp was found not guilty, I knew that was going to put Amber Heard in a very negative limelight, and sure enough it did. That's one of the reasons why this movie wasn't necessarily hyped up amongst a lot of people. I still went in with the expectation that it could be good, but it was a disappointment, which we'll get into for a sec. But yeah, you talk about the end of the DCEU, Mark.
Yeah.
Uh, what a bunch of wasted potential, I feel, from the DCEU. I mean, you had you had Batfleck
Mm-hmm.
back then. You had Henry Cavill, and you had all these other people who are going to be playing superheroes that we all grew up with, and
Right.
this ended up being the end result. It's a shame. It's such a shame that, and I had a feeling that this movie wouldn't necessarily end on a way that would make it a satisfying conclusion for the DCEU, and sure enough, I was right.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, and I'll be honest with you, like as exciting of a new DC universe that will be, but at the same time, like the announcement of that came in back in 2022 when Black Adam that had Dwayne the Rock Johnson in it. That announcement came in like right before the release of Black Adam that had Dwayne the Rock Johnson, because one of the original plans was to continue on with Zack Snyder's vision of the DC extended universe. But unfortunately, with that announcement, and of course, Dwayne the Rock Johnson wants in on this DC extended universe as well. And of course, when Harry Cavill came in for that cameo, it was exciting. But now looking back at it, it is disappoint. It is disappointing. Like,
It
think
it, it
about that.
is.
Do you realize how awesome it would have been if we get a few more movies with Henry Cavill Superman and Dwayne the Rock Johnson's Black Adam? That would have been so cool.
That would have been entertaining as all hell. And you throw in Zach Levi as Shazam in the mix, and Shazam does not necessarily have the best of relationships with either Black Adam or Superman. That could have been just a whole big showdown right there. That could have
Yeah,
been
it
just a
would
whole
have
big
been.
showdown. Yeah.
In fact, with Aquaman now going to Aquaman. Now let's go back to Aquaman. Aquaman 2. Like Aquaman 2, like I like the title idea. Aquaman, Aquaman, the Lost Kingdom, like Aquaman looking for this lost kingdom, knowing the fact that this lost kingdom is like this evil kingdom that Aquaman has to go up against. Now, title alone sounds like a good title for a good movie.
Yes, definitely does. Definitely does. But its execution was not proper.
No, it wasn't a proper execution, despite everything that is going on with the DCEU, including Warner Brothers as well. Even the track record that they had. Now, like I said, Dwayne the Rock Johnson had Black Adam. That film bombed, and then let's look at the other films that also came out. Blue Beetle, which I actually thought that movie was actually fine. That didn't do well at the box office either. The
Yeah.
Flash with Ezra Miller, to which I actually did multiple episodes on Ezra Miller, and of course I did the episode on the Flash that I that I just literally went into town on. That movie did not do as well. And then and then of course you had Shazam: Fury of the Gods, which I haven't talked about yet. That movie didn't do as well either. So look at the track record that the previous DC movies had. Now take the Batman out of the equation. We're just focusing on the DCEU because the Batman did well, but some of the movies from the DCEU leading up to Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, not as much.
No, no, not as much. It was definitely very lackluster, and I just have a feeling that was, you know, a lot of it just felt apathetic. I mean, leading up to it. I mean, I did see some of those films in theaters before, I did see Aquaman, and then I did not see Blue Beetle nor the second Shazam movie, but I did see The Flash. That was an okay movie. That was okay. I found it to be very entertaining because Ezra Miller as Barry Allen is very entertaining.
Yeah,
Um, it was just, you just had like so much time travel stuff happen. And then the ending where George Clooney is now Bruce Wayne, that just kind of it blew my mind, to be honest with you. I remember going to see The Flash with a friend of mine, and we both just looked at each other as soon as we saw George Clooney appear as Bruce Wayne. And we were like, "Why is he back?"
Yeah,
Like,
it's like
yeah,
Barry sees George Clooney's Bruce Wayne and was like, "Who the hell is this guy?"
yeah, like, yeah. We were all Barry Allen in that situation right there, because I thought Joel Schumacher basically made sure that George Clooney wouldn't be doing Batman anymore for as long as he was alive.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, Bruce Wayne and Batman, I guess in George Clooney's mind, are still two different people. But
How is
uh,
that one? How is it the fact that that one scene in the that one scene in the Flash, that scene alone makes Batman Forever look good?
yeah, it makes Val Kilmer look like a more respectable Batman when compared to George, which he already was. He already was when compared to George Clooney.
Yeah,
But anyways, with Aquaman though, it just I knew going into it though. I had a feeling whether I would like it or not, it wouldn't
yeah,
do well at the box office, mainly because it was the last DCEU movie. And, there's all this stuff going on with Amber Heard, and, no one wants to see an Amber Heard movie anymore.
yeah. Speaking of connecting with connecting with Amber Heard, Ezra Miller also had his fair share of trouble with the law as well, which also explains why the Flash didn't do as well too.
Exactly.
I don't know if you heard about that. I don't know if you heard about that too.
Oh, yep, yep. Yeah, The Flash definitely did not do as good, and a lot of that is because of Ezra Miller and a lot of his legal issues. The Flash definitely, yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Like at $220 million budget and only
Yeah,
grossed $271 million. Yeah, not good.
yeah, and
Not
Aquaman
good.
too. Aquaman had a budget. Aquaman 2 had a budget of 205 to 215. That's still a big That's still a big budget. And
Exactly.
looking at this film, like literally, you look at this film, like yes, that film, Aquaman 2: Lost Kingdom, has problems, but at the same time, it still look like the look of the film still looks decent. I'll give
Yes.
the film this.
hmm Yeah, it's a good looking film. Like the color, it's not as colorful. The first movie was very colorful
Hmm.
with the underwater city of Atlantis. You had the costume design for that film was insane. I loved how Aquaman's suit kind of had like a neon aesthetic look to it. It was very nice. Um, yeah, the whole movie, that movie just definitely had like a neon aesthetic
Hmm.
color design to it.
Yeah,
Same with this movie, the second movie definitely did too, but it just didn't feel as much of that because some of it is we spend a lot of it in the Arctic, and you can't
yeah,
really, the Arctic, you kind of have to deal with some duller designs, and
yeah. It's like the subpolar, no pun intended. Yeah, so because the Arctic's subpolar, let's be honest.
exactly.
like that's where the ending of that movie took place. Like the ending of that movie took place. Well, obviously, yeah. I mean, obviously some parts of the movie took place in the Arctic because part of the plot of that movie is basically the Lost Kingdom, and it's literally felt throughout the entire movie. Most notably most notably with Aquaman, Orm, and then of course this whole backstory of this king who was
Yep.
who has a brother who has an evil brother who ruled this king who were going against each other. Like in fact, they showed the scene of King Atlan going up against this evil king, and I'll be honest with you, as interesting as that villain was in as that third villain was, like let's be honest, Black Manta and Orm, Ocean Master, they were the only two good Aquaman villains in that movie compared to whoever that third villain was in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom.
Right, yeah, because it was just they didn't really set it up as much. It felt so rushed. because the film is trying to do too much. It's trying to set up the Lost Kingdom, but at the same time, you're following Black Manta, who's on a revenge story. That was one of the things honestly, I like the title and I like them, trying to look for the Lost Kingdom of Atlantis, but I just felt like the film, if you wanted to go more of a revenge route between Aquaman and Black Manta, I felt like the film should have just done that instead of
Yeah.
trying to tie in something else different because it's trying to do too much by then. I mean, because the Black Manta storyline was something that I actually really liked from the first Aquaman
Mhm.
movie, how he witnesses Aquaman kill his, well, not kill his, he didn't kill his father, but he didn't save him.
Right.
He didn't save him. And Black Manta blames him for what happened, which, he's right for blaming him for what happened.
Hmm.
And, then we see him take on the suit and he's fighting him and then he loses the battle and now he's coming back and he's stronger and better than ever. I
Yeah.
would have loved to see the film explore a lot more of that. But it tries to do a little bit too much by setting up the Lost Kingdom. And it's just like, this is the last movie in the DCEU. Why are you trying to set up stuff about the Lost Kingdom when we're probably not going to be exploring it again? Just
Yeah,
make it a
exactly.
revenge.
In
Yeah.
fact, if this movie, I feel like this movie would have been a very good third installment. So, like, think about it. If this was Aquaman and
Yeah.
the Lost Kingdom, that would have been a good third installment. In fact, continuing on with the Black Manta revenge storyline, like, think about this. This sequel could have been titled Aquaman 2: Black Manta's Revenge. How is that
Exactly.
for a movie title?
Yeah, that would have been a lot better, and it could have just focused on, because we see Black Manta, and I don't know how, but obviously he has gained followers. We already know he had David Shin from the credit scene in the first Aquaman movie. They were like, they were fighting, they were in league together, but he now has somehow a bunch of supporters, so
Yeah.
which the movie doesn't really explain all that well.
Mhm.
It would have been better to see Aquaman and Black Manta going at it, and then Black Manta trying to get back for, vengeance, and that would have just been a war between them. Because, Ocean Master he is one of the biggest Aquaman villains. If you read the comics, you know, he is one of the bigger ones, but Black Manta also has a big presence in the
Yeah.
comics as well.
Yeah, he has a big presence as well. And in all honesty, though, like, for all the films, for all the films, for all the problems that this movie had, I think the one of the few main redeeming factors of this movie is obviously, let's be honest, Jason Momoa. Jason Momoa, honestly, he steals the show in this movie. And then, of course, Patrick Wilson as Orm, Ocean Master, and of course their buddy cop duel. Like, because this is like, think about this. This is basically a buddy cop. This is basically a buddy cop film. And then Black Manta. I still like Black Manta in this movie. I thought Black Manta
Yeah,
in this movie was still good.
yeah.
The action sequences were pretty cool too. Some of the visual effects. But other than that, and then of course the artistic, literally like the look and style of the movie, and that's just basically it. That's just basically it. The story is all over the place, and
Exactly.
where the DC extended universe is going, and how it's being and how it was ended. Like, really? Like,
Yeah.
the last shot of that movie, like the last scene in that movie ends with Ocean Master eating a cockroach burger,
Yeah, I don't know. That's the
which is basically, get this. They actually Aquaman said this in the movie. The cockroach is basically the surface's version of shrimp.
um I mean, I've had shrimp multiple times before. I've never eaten cockroach. I don't think I would say taste-wise cockroach would be the surface world's version of shrimp. That's
Yeah,
just where I'll leave it. That is just where I'll leave it.
yeah. Yeah, that was established in the movie. Even Orm was just surprised by that. I was like, "What?" And then, like, he proceeds to eat the cockroach the first time around, and he was like, not bad. Like,
Well, because they tried to do like so much fish out of water comedy and that during that scene because Orm is on the surface now. He doesn't really know too much about the surface, and he's asking Aquaman about some of this stuff. It's like they're brothers, but they're like two entirely different people. Like, you look at Aquaman and how Jason Momoa's portrayal of him is. He's the king, but he doesn't want it. He's kind of, he's a fighter. He's not so much the formal type. Orm definitely is. He's more of the calm, clever presence that just waits. Jason Momoa's Aquaman is not necessarily like that. He's just like, you know, get me into this fight now. You know.
yeah.
So
Yeah, but I'll be honest with you. Like let's be honest. Like Patrick Wilson and Jason Momoa were very good. I enjoyed their chemistry in that movie.
they had a lot of good chemistry. I liked seeing them. I knew that was going to. They were hinting at something like that with the ending of the first movie when Aquaman defeats Orm. Orm is taken into custody, and he's like, "Hey, when you're ready, let's talk."
Yeah.
So I knew they were going to do something like that. And in the film, we got like a Thor. It was really good. It felt like a Thor and Loki type relationship. And
Yeah.
it kind of did get on the nose a little bit there because there was one joke where Aquaman, he calls Orm Loki.
Oh
Yeah,
yes.
he calls Orm Loki, and I'm just like, hey, you're getting a little bit too much on the nose here with this one, guys.
Yes. I mean, let's be honest. I think, let's be honest. DC, it's not the only Marvel joke we get from DC. In fact, I haven't seen the Lego Batman movie, but I heard the Lego Batman movie made an Iron Man joke in
Iron
that
Man
movie.
sucks.
Iron Man sucks. Like
Yeah.
that was Batman's password to get into the Batcave. Iron Man sucks.
I do remember seeing the Lego Batman movie in theaters on opening weekend. I remember I was in high school. I saw it with a few friends, and we were all just we were everyone in the theater was like, "Oh no, we did it!" As soon as they were just like, "Iron Man sucks."
uh oh, by the way, FYI, the Lego Batman movie was robbed of an Oscar. Throwing it out there.
Best best animated Oscar film.
It was
That's
robbed.
it was a contender. I will say it was a contender. It was a good. It was a finalist. It was definitely one of the best animated movies of that year. So, but I'm just gonna say this with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, I don't really expect that to uh to have any awards.
No.
If any awards, it's gonna be kind of middling, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. It will be very middling. So and it's a shame because James Wan, I loved his direction. He is a great director.
I think so. I believe so too. Like he directed the first Aquaman movie, so I thought him directing the sequel was a good idea. But even then, like where he was go, but even then, even though the problems that he had to deal with, like it just took an effect on him, and it literally made him the film made him not direct any other movies. Like like with the Conjuring universe that is going on. I mean,
Yeah.
he's still attached to those movies as producer, which is still good. But literally, what went down with Aquaman 2 really took an effect on his career, especially when it comes to like directing other movies. Like he was attached to this movie for a while. In fact, there were rumors of reshoots going on with Aquaman 2. Some even stated that there were about 3 sets of reshoots. One of them actually featured Ben Affleck's Batman in this movie.
Uh-huh. Really? Wow. That's which we didn't see in the final cut.
No.
But
And I
if
think
you're
there's a rumor that Michael Keaton's Batman would have been in it, but I think it was just more likely Ben Affleck's Batman because of this whole this whole multiverse that DC was trying to do, especially with the Flash.
Yeah. They're trying to go a little bit too much Marvel already, and this is one of the biggest problems with the superhero movie genre nowadays, and it's why people are not nearly watching it as much anymore. It's because these studios like DC and Warner Brothers are seeing what Disney and Marvel and the MCU did with their films for a long time. And the MCU, it's not sustainable anymore. It just isn't because
No,
they don't necessarily have a roadmap to go off of anymore
exactly.
ever since Endgame. They've kind of their movies have not really been the best, and you kind of nowadays with their movies, you have to watch their TV series to understand everything that's going on, and not a whole lot of people are doing that.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. But don't get me wrong. Some movies, after Endgame, some of the Marvel movies from after Endgame, there are still some entertaining Marvel movies after Endgame. Don't get me wrong. Like
there
I
were
still believe Spider-Man No Way Home is
right.
one of them. Guardians 3, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and possibly Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. That in my opinion. But
Yeah,
the rest, not so much.
no, not nearly as much with the other ones. I mean, Eternals was definitely a letdown. I was really excited to see the Black Widow movie. The I was really excited to see that one, but that was okay. I wouldn't
Mhm.
say that was bad. That was just okay. It
Yeah,
was,
I didn't like Black Widow. I mean, I was looking forward to that movie, but I I felt empty. I felt
yeah,
really empty with that movie,
I yeah, I
especially with, especially with that twist, especially with that villain twist at the end with Taskmaster. I mean,
yeah,
look how they massacre my boy Taskmaster.
yeah. The Black Widow was a big letdown for me. I didn't see Shang-Chi. Thor, Love and Thunder, that felt rushed. Like that just felt very, that was just like it felt so nonchalant. That's like one of the better ways I can describe that movie. Like
Hmm.
no one really cared about that film. It felt
No.
very rushed through, and it tonally didn't work for me because it tries to be a very hilarious film, and then you have Christian Bale as Gore, the God Killer, who is very sadistic and dark. The
God
God
Butcher.
Butcher, sorry, God Butcher. Let me put some respect on the name. Uh, but he's very sadistic and twisted, and you see him like freaking out a bunch of kids, and it's like it just didn't really tonally work. But the superhero movies are, they need a new direction because the MCU's direction, in my opinion, doesn't last. It doesn't work, and James Wan spiced it up a little bit with the Aquaman movies, or he tried to with, the first one. I felt like he definitely did better with that. The second
Yeah,
one, it just didn't capture that as much. It didn't
no,
capture that
it
because it was
didn't.
trying to do way too much.
Yeah, there was like a lot going. There was a lot going on with that movie, especially like Amber Heard situation, James Gunn starting his own universe, and of course, obviously the pandemic. If you count the pandemic, because the movie itself, like the idea was starting to come around during the pandemic, and they were trying to like work around. They were trying to like work around it too. But the two main things was obviously the Amber Heard and the new direction of where DC is going with, especially with James Gunn.
Yes, exactly. And I actually am really excited, to be honest. I am really excited to see James Gunn's version of the DC of the new DC universe. He directed the Suicide Squad, which we have to differentiate between two titles of Suicide Squads
Right. Yeah.
now.
And then
Yeah, you just got a bad one and a good one, and
mhm.
you just attach the good one to James. You just look for the one that James Gunn directed, and it's like, oh yeah, that's the one we all want to see. Um,
and then
so
then you also had I know he had Peacemaker as well with John Cena.
Yeah, he did.
I,
Peacemaker is very, very good, honestly.
I
I
actually
like
haven't
that.
seen I have not seen the entire show. I only saw one episode. I only saw one episode of Peacemaker, and I thought it was fine, but I actually wanted to watch the Peacemaker show just so I can like just to catch up on it. But that's just basically it. I only saw one episode of Peacemaker, and then I know James Gunn's got his own Superman movie coming up, which a part of me I'm looking forward to it, but it's still a little salty on how they treated Henry Cavill at the
Yeah,
beginning.
yeah, I definitely am too. Just because I think Henry Cavill really wanted to do it. He really wanted to come back and you know, do it, but it just wasn't, it wasn't gonna work. I think James Gunn wanted to go in a different direction, with all the DC stuff. And he's a great filmmaker. I love the Guardians movies. Those
Yeah,
were
I did. Yeah, same
entertaining.
here. Yeah,
Yeah, the
love those
Guardians
movies.
movies were really good. It's Superman Legacy is the title. Uh, that is going to be the name of his Superman film that's coming out. So I
Yeah,
am really
if
excited to see what that one is.
yeah, if James Gunn respects the Superman lore, like let's just say like once that film comes, let's see what the trailer looks like first. We haven't gotten a trailer yet, but if somehow that trailer respects the Superman lore and of course honors Christopher Reeve's Superman or even Henry Cavill's Superman, or at least like give some sort of like acknowledgement to Henry Cavill, Christopher Reeve, and then all the other Supermans that came before, okay. But we'll have to wait and see because even when the Aquaman 2 film came out, like you feel the James Gunn presence. Like James Gunn was not involved with Aquaman 2, but with that whole announcement with James Gunn taking over DC and starting that new universe. Now, well, I don't mind James Gunn taking over DC, but with the new universe that is like taking over after the DCEU, his presence was felt throughout the rest of 2023, especially with the other DC movies.
It definitely was. It definitely was, Mark. It definitely was, and that's just the reason why the DC movies just haven't necessarily felt as climactic or as, entertaining. And I think it's because the filmmakers and the people marketing just feel like, oh, why are we trying to push these films out? It's not going to matter much anymore. I
Yeah,
mean,
DC
yeah.
is not Marvel. DC's
No.
not Marvel. Marvel is their own thing. So is DC, and so is DC. And I feel like Aquaman 2 tried so hard to be like Marvel at times.
It did. It did try a little bit too hard to be Marvel at times, but it just goes way too much into more of what what it wants to be, what it's trying to be instead of what it should be,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, opening. Like, look at the opening of the movie. Like, the movie opens up with, well, obviously, it opens up pretty good. Aquaman finding pirates on this barge. And then it cuts to Aquaman on land, Aquaman at home with Mira. And Aquaman, for like not even 5 minutes into the film, Aquaman gets pissed in the face by his own baby.
Oh, oh, oh my God. Yeah, I was like thinking, oh my God. And still, I was just like, why are you setting up that Aquaman has a child now? I mean, I get it. I know he's like married to Mera.
Mira.
I was just like, why are you setting up that Aquaman has a child now when it's like the last film? It felt like, and I think James Wan definitely felt like James Gunn taking over DC, being the CEO of the DC universe now. Because there's a lot it felt like he wanted to do in this movie that he wanted to explore in future films.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be able to see that now because
No.
James Gunn is redoing everything and is
Yeah.
wiping the floor with everything and is essentially starting a reboot.
Yeah, and also, I want to throw this out there. I went to see this movie with my twin brother Mike, who has made a few appearances on this show. We were sitting in the theater. It wasn't a packed theater. I mean, there were still some people in that theater. I gotta say, probably about half a theater when they show, and then when they show the first shot of Amber Heard as Mira in that movie, in that opening scene, some people were like, "She's still in this movie."
Yeah, yeah. Spoiler alert, she is.
Yes,
Yeah.
she's still in this movie. I do like their convers. I do like how it does go back and forth between Aquaman as a father and then Aquaman as the king. Although his job as a king, like he falls asleep during the job at one point. Like he's
Oh
at
yeah.
this one meeting with the entire council of the Seven Kingdoms, and he just falls asleep. He was like, what? Yeah, you were saying?
Yeah, well, and the film kind of does this too. He has like good ideas. Like he has ideas that he wants to do, but like the council doesn't really agree with him on it, and he's taking a lot of heat. You know, he takes a lot of heat because he's not a true Atlantean. He's not a true Atlantean king. He's a half-breed,
Yeah,
you know.
happily.
So people are already kind of skeptical of him for that, and there's even a conversation where he and Orm are having, like, when they're together, and Orm's like, well, if you don't like this, maybe you should let me be the king again. Like you know, you need somebody who's better suited run the to run the throne and stuff, and make better decisions and have people agree with you. And Aquaman's like, yeah, so what? You're just gonna start another war again with the surface? So, yeah, the film just goes in a lot of different directions. But then at the end, we see Aquaman making the speech, and he's trying to sound like a true king, so
Yes.
he makes Atlantis public to everybody. He's trying to sound like a true king and a
Yeah.
good king, which kind of goes through a little bit of an arc, but it doesn't feel like that arc is entirely deserved.
No, it like literally feels like a send off to the DC extended universe. I feel like that's one of the few scenes. I feel like that's one of the few reshoots or maybe additional scenes that they had to do with this movie. But at the same time, it reminds me of the first of the ending of Iron Man, and of course the ending, of course that one post credit scene in Black Panther, like where they
Yeah.
want to like where they obviously want where in Black Panther where they want to bring the kingdom of Wakanda to the world to introduce
Hmm.
Wakanda to the world, and then of course, although I think that was already established in
Yep.
the Marvel universe,
Yep.
and
Yep.
And then with Iron Man, Tony Stark revealing that he is Iron Man.
Yep, yep. It tried to do something a little bit like that, but it didn't need to do that. It's like,
No,
yeah.
and
It
it
didn't
just ended on a mic drop. Like the whole speech ends on a mic drop.
exactly.
Like mic
Exactly.
drop. And then, but no, that was not the real ending. That was not the real ending. The real ending was Orm eating a cockroach burger.
That's the true send off to the DC universe that I'm sure only a few people will remember fully is, the last scene. What are they gonna remember? Oh, Patrick Wilson just having a cockroach sandwich. That's the true ending that everyone
Yeah, that's
wants
the true
to
ending everybody's gonna remember from the DCEU. I mean, how about the Marvel? I mean, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is still going, but everybody's pretending. Everybody's saying that no, it should have ended. No, it should have ended after Endgame. And what we remember for Endgame is obviously Tony Stark dying, and then of course, and then of course, Sam Wilson. Is that his name? Sam Wilson.
Yep, Sam Wilson taking the shield from Captain America and being like, "I'll do my best."
Yep. And
Hmm.
then yeah, that was big. And then Steve Rogers dancing with Agent Carter, dancing, finally getting his dance with Agent Carter. But outside of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, what about the other movies like Logan? You've seen Logan?
I did see Logan. I did see that when it was in theaters, and that was a
Everybody remember Logan
brutal.
dying in that movie.
Uh-huh. And that was a good send off to what we thought was going to be Hugh Jackman's final portrayal of Logan, but
Mhm.
as we know now, he's coming back he's coming back in Deadpool 3, which
Yeah,
we're all very excited to see.
I'm actually excited. I'm actually excited on that one. I actually did an episode. I actually did an episode on that already. I did an episode on that already on the trailer, just the trailer, just the trailer.
Just the trailer.
Yeah, on the
Yeah.
trailer, and I'm actually excited for that one. But yeah, but Aquaman mic dropping in front of the entire people, in front of the entire audience, and then Ormini a cockroach burger. Yeah, that's how we end it. That's how this whole thing's gonna end. But but also like there were a few things in that movie where I was still disappointed with Willem Dafoe's absence from the movie.
Yes, yes. Willem Dafoe. Apparently, his character Volko died. I was like, I how
Yeah, I
they
mean
did.
they
Yeah,
named
that.
they name dropped Volko in the beginning of the movie, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah, it's like,
What was that? Like, I mean, who would? I don't even know if Willem Dafoe was even rumored to be in this movie. I mean, even if he's not in this movie, I mean, even
yeah,
if he is not in this movie, okay, that's fine. Or even a name drop of Volko, I mean, that's fine. But saying that Volko, name dropping Volko as if he was dead in the, and name dropping
yeah,
Volko saying that he died in this movie, that's just
exactly.
I find it to be insulting because one, you have a great actor playing this character like Willem Dafoe, and
Mm,
two, how did Vocal died? We don't even see Vocal in this. We don't even see
no,
Vocal in this movie at all.
yeah, we don't know how he died. The film is like, the film just like brushes off as like, I wish Volko were here, and I just as soon as I heard that, I was like, what? You're just gonna leave it like that? You're
Like,
just gonna name drop him and leave him like that?
yeah, they did him. Actually, no, they didn't. I mean, it wasn't the first time they did Vocal dirt. It wasn't the first time they did Willem Dafoe dirty in the 2017 Joss Whedon Justice League. Vocal was removed from that movie until Zack Snyder came out with his own director's cut where Vocal was in it.
Yes, and the I did not see the Zack Snyder cut, but it keeps a lot, it's more faithful, I feel, to the whole DC. And that's the other big thing too, is Zack Snyder's, stepping down and sort of like letting other people like take charge here. Obviously it was a horrible situation with what happened to Zack Snyder, the suicide of his daughter. That's
Hmm.
such a tough situation. But it just felt like ever since, that happened, like since that moment happened, that was sort of like the deciding moment in terms of the future for the DC extended universe. Because once he stepped away and was going to focus more on his family, he, it kind of just opened it up for other filmmakers with different visions and ideas to take over what he had wanted to do in the first
Yeah,
place.
which
And I
which is
had
not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. I don't. I mean, that's not a bad thing. I mean, hey, I
this,
am open to new directors. Working on the DC on working on these projects, which is fine. Which is fine. I mean, you had Patty Jenkins on Wonder Woman, James Wan on Aquaman. You also have who's the guy? If it's David F. Sandberg, if I'm saying
David
his
F.
name right.
Sandberg, yep.
Yeah, for Shazam. I mean, still work. I mean, it still works. I think Joss Whedon would have done a fine job, but from what we heard, but from what I heard, what went down with Joss Whedon, especially his most notably his behavior, and then of course how the studio treated the Justice League movie, it just
Yeah.
fell apart.
Mm, yeah, no, it just, yeah, because Joss Whedon definitely kind of came in and was like, we're gonna get rid of all some of the darkish stuff that Zack Snyder did from Batman v Superman, and we're just gonna do it as a more fluffy movie. And it's like you don't really need to make Justice League that fluffy of a movie because you took a lot of the darkness out. Steppenwolf was a horrible, bland villain who was
Yes.
just a big, big CGI monster with an axe that was
Yeah.
very powerful but had nothing else behind him.
And then
And
removed all of his backstory, but
yes,
aside
yes,
from that, the Steppenwolf from Zack Snyder's Justice League was a lot better
yeah,
than what Joss Whedon did. I'll say that.
yeah. He is. it was just and I did hear from the Zack Snyder cut that a lot of people were saying that the scenes that were kept in the original Justice League movie that were also seen in the Snyder cut, those were Zack Snyder moments.
Yeah.
Those were Zack Snyder moments, and those were easily some of the best moments in that movie. I still need to see the Snyder cut though, which I'm gonna need to take maybe a full day out of because it's a 4 hour movie, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna need to, you know, decompress and just take a breather like 2 hours in or something, because it's not going to be, but it's going to feel like a movie marathon. But it just felt like ever since Zack Snyder sort of stepped away from everything that was happening, with the DC with the DCEU, it was just like, it just opened up the floodgates for other people to just take charge and and you said it, Mark, it's not a bad thing for directors with different visions to come in. I mean, we've seen that tons of times before. That happens a lot in the MCU,
Hmm.
but you didn't have a control you didn't have somewhat like a creative guidance over, watching over them, essentially saying, okay, this is what you can and can't do here. This is what
Hmm.
you need to have happen. It's just like, it just felt like it was a mess all over the place, sometimes with how everything was, how certain things were handled and all that. It didn't necessarily feel warranted.
Right. Like
Yeah,
there are definitely things where I feel like it was like I didn't think it was warranted to kill off Boko. Like, come on, like why kill him off like that? Like we don't even see him. Like they just name dropped him and all, which I don't mind, but name dropping him and saying that he's dead. I mean, come on. Like that's not a
exactly.
good way. That's not a good
Yeah.
way. That's not a good way to send off your a supporting character that we only know him from like one or two movies, and
Yeah.
then and then this whole thing keeps on going, and then this whole movie keeps on going. I mean, we got to check out different kingdoms too, but also Mira gets knocked out. Mira was basically out of the picture for like almost the entire film.
Yeah, that was James Wan's way of saying, okay, you don't want to see Amber Heard. Well, in the back she goes for a good chunk of the movie. You
Yeah,
know, that was basically their way of saying, yeah, we don't really want to see Amber Heard. We don't really want the audience to get upset about us showing Amber Heard. So away she goes for
yeah,
quite a bit of this movie, which, I didn't mind. I mean, obviously I have my opinions with the whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. I felt like, Johnny Depp was clearly wronged in a lot of ways. I feel like a lot of people should owe him an apology for
mhm,
stuff that happened, and it's great to see him, it's great to see him kind of keeping receipts about who wronged him, because he doesn't want to come back to Disney. He doesn't want to do
no,
another
no,
Pirates
no.
movie. Doesn't
Like
want to do that.
He doesn't need Disney. He doesn't need Disney. He doesn't need Warner Brothers.
No, with how Warner Bros.
Unless Tim Burton, Tim. I mean, but I could definitely see Johnny Depp. I could definitely see Johnny Depp working with Tim Burton again. I can
He
see that.
can. He can definitely. He's definitely not going to go back to Warner Brothers though, because if you
No.
remember as well, if you've seen the Harry Potter films, the Fantastic Beasts movies, he was
Yes.
Grindelwald,
Hmm.
and he doesn't want to do that. And clearly, I think Warner Brothers is okay with that because for some reason they like Mads Mikkelsen as Grindelwald more than they do Johnny Depp.
Yeah. Hey. I heard Mads Mikkelsen was good as Grindelwald. I mean, I'll give him that. I mean, hey, come on. I mean, can't go wrong with Mads Mikkelsen as Grindelwald. I mean,
No,
I can't go wrong with that.
no,
I mean,
no.
hey, those two guys. I mean, those two guys, Johnny Depp and Mads Mikkelsen. Hey, respect to those guys.
Yep, yeah, they are. They deserve a lot of respect. So it's just, I just feel like, too, this film just it was doomed from the start. The
Yeah.
film was Aquaman 2 was doomed from the start because you had so much happening. You had so many reshoots happening. You had James Gunn coming in, taking control of DC and wanting to do a clean slate and somehow allowing this film to come out, and James Wan still wanted to explore the Lost Kingdom. And I'm just gonna say this. If this film wasn't surrounded by the controversy with Amber Heard, and if James Gunn did not come in and say we're going to do a clean sweep and direct this film and and redo this whole universe, I felt like James Gunn or no, James Wan, I mean, would have made a better movie, you
I
know.
think this movie would have been I think this movie would have been better, but in all honesty, though, I mean, despite the trouble it had, like there are still some moments in this movie where it's still good. I mean, I do like how they went to different places through in the under. I like how they went through different places. Like, let's be honest, world building,
Yep.
the world itself, the world of Aquaman itself. I find it funny how they went back to the Sahara Desert where
Yeah.
Aquaman and his squid or octopus sidekick are trying to break Orm out, and then like
Yeah.
this little octopus, this little or squid, is it an octopus or
It's
squid?
an octopus. It's an octopus, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, he follows the Aquaman around, and he Aquaman's just basically annoyed by this. I mean,
Oh yeah, he
probably
doesn't
more
like
annoyed
it.
than Squidward than I'll say.
Yeah, wow. Aquaman gets paired up with Squidward, and somehow Aquaman is the most annoyed out of the duo. You wouldn't have guessed that any other day of the week.
Yeah,
You would
yeah.
not have guessed that any other day of the
And
week.
then I find it funny how Orm looks like Tom Hanks's character from Castaway.
Yes. Yeah,
He had the
he
full beard, the full he had the full beard and he had the full beard and then like his hair. Yeah, he had a mullet too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, they got him right, like for how he was supposed to be when he was imprisoned, like he basically was like weak. He was, like skin and bones. And then I like it too, how when he goes in the water, when he's after he gets beaten up by a few people and he gets sucked in by the water and then he becomes his old self again.
Yeah,
I like that part of the film. That part of the film was cool to see on film, and on the screen.
yeah,
And the action sequences, I didn't mind the action sequences to me. They felt really well choreographed. They felt really well shot. That was like my biggest thing. When I saw the first Aquaman movie and I saw James Wan shooting the action sequences in full wides, I was like, thank you.
yeah,
Thank you. You understand. This guy understands how to shoot
and
action
yeah, and
sequences.
the cinematographer Don Burgess did the cinematography in in both movies.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And he,
Cinematography, like I am blown away by the cinematography. Like you watch those two Aquaman movies now. You watch them now. You are
yeah,
blown away by the cinematography. Like it is
exactly.
amazing cinematography. It feels like you are being pulled into this movie.
Yes, exactly. And it's just with the color behind it as well. The color just leaps out of the screen. You're underwater in this Atlantis city. It's just
Yeah.
incredible. You feel like you're immersed with it. And here in this movie, it tries to do that, but then you go to other areas like the Arctic, where it's like it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily feel as good.
Yeah.
You know,
I
doesn't
mean,
necessarily.
the final battle did get a little greenish.
The final battle was definitely filled with a lot of green because that was like the color they went for this other kingdom.
Right. And because this other kingdom that we barely even I mean, obviously that we felt this the presence of that kingdom was felt, but the build up and backstory of this king, like of this evil king, I feel like we could have got a little more of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we could have gotten a little bit more of that, but I still feel the film would have been a lot better had it just focused a lot more on the vendetta between Black Manta and Aquaman.
Yeah, and Black Manta steals Aquaman's baby.
Yeah, that's a big thing that happens in this movie. That's a huge thing that happens, and we see. What I really liked in this film too. It did explore how. I knew this was. I had a feeling this was going to happen years before this film came out. Was Stephen Shin? He's not a villain.
No, he's
He's
not.
just he's not a bad guy. He's just misunderstood because he believes in Atlantis and everyone looks at him like, well, you're a whack job. You're just some crackpot mad scientist who clearly has been working way too much in the laboratory. But he's misunderstood. He just wants to see this. Atlantis,
Yeah.
and he learns that Black Manta has a lot of ulterior motives behind
Hmm.
him. He wants to take over Atlantis and he wants to kill Aquaman, and he brings innocent lives into it. And Stephen Shin's like, no, I don't really want to do that. But it was great to see Stephen Shin, like, Randall Park as Stephen Shin, like, trying to save Aquaman's baby and go against Black Manta.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Black Manta wants the blood of Aquaman's son, but yet why couldn't he? But yet Aquaman's probably got more blood. Aquaman's got more blood on his side.
Yeah, it's like why I don't know. That I didn't necessarily like of that film. It was
Yeah,
just
that
like
was probably one of the. That's probably another. That's one of the few things in that movie where it's like, okay, we're really, really really pushing that bar right there.
yeah, we are really kind of pushing the bar quite a bit. And James Wan kind of comes from that though. He's a
Yeah,
horror director, and the scene where what is it where Black Manta, you know, abducts Aquaman's son. It can be an intensifying scene because
yeah,
it's in the dark, it's at night in this thunderstorm. Aquaman's father, Tamora Morrison, is watching the baby, and then all of a sudden he turns around and we see in the dark Black Manta's red eyes just light up on his suit, and as soon as
yeah.
I was
That
like,
feels
oh,
like
behind
something.
you.
That feels like something out of the Conjuring universe too. Think
Exactly.
about think
Yes.
about that. Hey,
Yes.
like Where's his Mandalorian armor? Where's his Mandalorian armor? You
Yeah,
gotta throw
where's
that
we
on.
need yeah. Hey, Boba, Jango, you're under attack. Watch out.
Watch
Watch
out!
out.
Watch
Get
out!
the get
Don't
the
don't get
armor.
don't get blasted like a
Get
bantha.
Oh my God.
Oh man, but
Oh my God.
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. What Book of Boba Fett? Like literally, come on. I'm sorry. That quote from Boba Fett, like that quote from Book of Boba Fett. I'm sorry. That's literal.
That's
That's a literal punchline, right?
yeah, that is a literal punchline. That's you can't make that you can't go about that any other two
Yeah,
ways.
but
You just
some of
you
the
just
other
can't.
characters in Aquaman too, like we get to see this weird kingdom where no, I wouldn't say it's weird, but this guy, this kingpin looking fish, where he's being played by Martin Short. He one scene that they had, and it was at this like casino like underwater kingdom
Yep.
where Aquaman and Orm are talking to this one fish, this kingfish about this whole conversation. I'm just like about Orm, about
Yeah.
not Orm,
Black
Black Manta.
Manta. Yep, Black Manta.
Like what? I'm just like what? I mean, I recognize Martin Short's voice, but I'm just like, okay,
Yeah, no, it's I don't know. I didn't necessarily care. It wasn't that this movie, it wasn't that it was horrible. I would just say it's forgettable in a lot of ways. It
yeah,
feels, and that's one of the things I can say about a lot of the DCEU movies is that it just feels so forgettable after a while. There's a lot of elements to it that just don't necessarily, they're not impactful, and especially for what was the last movie in the DCEU, it should have sent us out more with a bang.
yeah,
But apparently, again, DC's big idea behind that is having Patrick Wilson sitting at some restaurant dock just eating a cockroach sandwich.
yeah, cockroach burger with a
Cockroach
pint of
burger.
Guinness.
Oh my God. Yeah, pint of
Uh,
Guinness. It's
yeah,
yeah, but again, you just feel like there's a lot that they wanted to do
yeah.
in
Could you imagine how crazy of an ending that movie would have been if Orm was actually going to be the next villain in a third Aquaman movie? Like, if you hold
yes.
on to that black trident, because don't forget, and I can't believe I left this out. This black trident
Mhm.
that this Lost Kingdom had
Yeah.
literally can control like those who are worthy. I believe if that's right, if that's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there are moments where Orm was wanting to do that, but then he's like, "No, I'm a changed man now. I'm trying to do this for the greater good." It's like they're just kind of butchering his character now at this point.
yeah,
He's not
but
supposed to
yeah,
entirely be a good guy.
no, exactly. But imagine if that was the case for Aquaman 3. Like he actually but like he lets go of that trident, but some of it is still inside him.
Yeah, some of it is still inside of him, like he's still there, but then the film makes sure of like, nope, nope, he's not gonna have way too much of it anymore.
Yeah,
He's there. Yep.
and Black Manta dies in this movie too.
Yeah, that I wasn't necessarily, you know, I get it. It was like, one must live, the other must die. That's how it should be. But, you know, Aquaman was basically like, I'm only fighting you so I can like save my son. But if I remember correctly from watching that movie, it is a fight, but Black Manta gets his ass kicked
Yeah,
in
he
in
did.
that fight. He gets taken care of pretty easily, I would say, by
Yeah,
Aquaman. And for a guy who is spending years trying to build his way back up and find this guy and fight him and kill him, he goes out on a whimper, pretty much.
he pretty much does. He goes on this whimper, just like how this whole movie did. But
Yeah.
like this whole whimper, even the Flash went out on a whimper too.
Yeah, the Flash went out on a very confusing ending because then we see George Clooney return as Bruce Wayne
Yeah,
and again
like
we're all Barry Allen in this one like who the hell is this guy here?
yeah. Oh, even Aquaman had a cameo in that one too.
Well, well, it wasn't Aquaman. It was like was
It
it
was
Arth
some hobo Aquaman.
yeah. Yeah, it was some hobo-ish Aquaman, and then you saw Tamora Morrison play Aquaman's father in an alternative universe where Aquaman was not born.
Yeah,
So that was yeah,
yeah.
that was a funny scene. I like that scene, but
That was actually pretty funny. Yeah,
that
but
was a funny scene.
yeah, yeah. But other than that, I mean, man, like you feel like talking about this movie. I feel like I'm forgetting all the other characters as well, like Aquaman's mother, and then obviously Dolph Lundgren. Then of course King Dolph Lundgren, who is also in the movie too. And then you got the king that this king who was from the kingdom of the Brime Kingdom. Like you forget
Yeah.
that these characters are in this movie.
You do, because the film just feels anticlimactic in a lot of ways.
Yeah, like all you know from this movie obviously Aquaman and Orm. Those are the only
Hmm.
two characters you get to tag along in this movie. And then also you could definitely say Black Manta.
Exactly, yeah, because Black Manta is not forgettable because he's like a big force in the
Yeah.
film. He's like a big force trying to go after Aquaman. You remember Aquaman, you remember Orm because they have good chemistry with each other and they work together hand in hand pretty well. But, you don't necessarily, and I think this is good for a lot of people, you don't really care about Amber Heard in this film. And you don't
Yeah.
but you also kind of forget about Nicole Kidman and Tamora Morrison and Dolph Lundgren and other characters. I'm like, why is, and the Brian King felt like he was some big person at the end of the movie, and it's like you were barely in the first movie. The
Yeah.
only time we saw of you in the first movie was when you made some big speech when Orm's army was about to, when your army and Orm's army was about to go to battle,
Hmm.
and then Orm just easily just slices your hand off.
Yeah.
And you're acting all big until like, why are you trying to act all? You were barely in the movie in the first
Hmm.
movie, and now you show up at the end and you're like, oh yeah, I'm the Brian King, I'm big and everything. And it's like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like he's barely in this movie. In fact, this whole final battle, I feel like that's more of a Justice League threat than an Aquaman threat.
It felt like a Justice League. Yeah, it
Which
felt
also
like
explains why this also explains. I mean, this also explains like Ben Affleck's casting for in this movie because I feel like Ben Affleck and Aquaman would have teamed up just to take out this kingdom. Because think about this. I mean, think about this. If this was Batman and Aquaman, and of course Orm going up against Black Manta in this Lost Kingdom, like that would have been a huge, monumental battle.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see.
It would have been, it would have given Batfleck a more proper send off, I feel. It would have given Batfleck a lot more of a proper send off. So,
Yeah.
you know, yeah. I
At least Mr. Freeze wasn't there.
Mr. Freeze. Oh God, and we didn't have to deal with any more Arnold Schwarzenegger and his ice puns. Oh, God.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I still remember watching that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I
Um,
liked it when I liked it when I was little, but looking back at it now, I mean, it is just an ice-filled punchline within a
yeah.
punchline.
Yeah, literally, that's like, I still remember seeing that too, and I remember hearing a lot of people didn't like the movie. I was like, why don't people like this? And then as my mind began to get a lot more older, and I began to learn some more about film stuff, and I saw what was happening in that movie, it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, but I would have been I mean, I would have been amazed to see what that outcome of that final battle would have been. If that was the case, or if it was
yes,
just basically, a Ben Affleck cameo at the end of the movie, I mean, okay.
yeah,
Okay. But still, this would have been a Justice League battle rather than just an Aquaman battle, if you know what I'm saying. And
right,
and on top of that, I mean, let's be honest, the casting did pretty well. I thought, like, outside of all this, I mean, most of the cast members did pretty well. And I'm starting to say this, and I'm gonna have to single this out. I'm sorry, I have to. I didn't care for Amber Heard at all. I did not care for her in this movie at all.
no. And it's already hard to care for her after everything that happened between her and Johnny Depp.
Yeah,
It's hard to care for Amber Heard as, in this film. I mean, people don't like her really much anymore as it already is. And,
yeah,
what makes you think that they're going to care for her more in this movie?
yeah. I
She's
mean,
not a,
it's gonna be hard for Amber Heard to redeem herself. It's gonna take a lot of time. It's gonna be so hard. It's gonna be hard for her to redeem herself. I think down
yes.
the I think down the line there is obviously possibility for her to redeem herself, but that's gonna take a lot of time.
It will. It is definitely going to take a lot and a lot of time, I feel. It's not going to be I'm just gonna say this. It's not gonna be an easy comeback for Amber Heard. She's gotta take a really big look at herself and make a change, but that's
Yeah.
that's not gonna be easy. That ain't gonna be easy for her to do.
No,
So
it's not gonna be easy for her. And it's not gonna be easy for it's not gonna be easy for probably for DC and Warner Brothers as of now because they lost a lot of money on these movies. They lost a
yeah,
crap ton of money on these movies.
they did. They lost a heck of a lot of money on these movies, and
Like
it's yeah,
yeah,
it's not
like
gonna
this
get better for
movie
them.
actually this movie made over $400 million on the budget of 200 to 215.
Hmm.
So I mean,
It's
like
not the worst.
yeah,
It's
it's not the
respect
worst.
compared to some of the other stuff that DC did. It's better. I mean, Blue Beetle didn't really do so good. Um, you know,
Because I say that obviously that last clip of that trailer from Blue Beetle really sealed the deal.
a little bit, a little bit.
Yeah,
And then you had Shazam. That movie flopped. Same with what was the other DC movie that came out?
Flash.
Black Adam, Flash, and then Black Adam. So you had four DC movies that it just felt like last year they were all just like
Yeah,
just trying to get those quickly done and taken care of and out of the way with, and it was just like. I don't know. I,
Yeah, they're
I
just basically. It feels like these movies were just basically left out to die.
exactly, exactly. That's how I feel.
Yeah, a
But
lot of people lost interest in these movies because, well, obviously with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, I mean, I give that film props for at least trying to get some of
yeah,
that money back. I'll give the film this. So it did
hmm
make some of that money back. I'll give that film this. I'll give the film that.
yeah. It did get some of the money back for this film. I will give it that as well. But it was still very anticlimactic. It wasn't saying much compared to what some of the other DC movies had done,
It was
earlier in the
better. Actually, here's the thing. I had more fun with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom than the live action remake of The Little Mermaid.
year. That's saying. I did see the first half of the live action Little Mermaid remake. I knew that one was not going to be good as soon as I saw the trailer for it. And I saw the first half of it, and it just, and Disney live action remakes, that's a story for another time, but
Yeah.
they don't hold up really well, in my
Mhm.
opinion. You look at some of the few movies that have been okay with that, like the Cinderella live action film, that was decent. But again, it just feels like these live action remakes are just cash grabs for Disney. And now we
Yeah.
have the Hunchback of Notre Dame live
Oh, I
action
heard about
remake.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that would definitely be another episode. That would definitely be another episode for another day.
That is definitely going to be
Yeah,
one, but yeah,
but
with
I'm just saying that to. I was just saying that because listen, I had because there's definitely some fun. There's definitely fun in that Aquaman sequel. Let's be honest.
there is definitely some fun to have. It's not a horrible movie. Like it's
No, it's
not.
not. I mean, if you look at it just like you take this film out of the DCEU equation and
Mhm,
just look at it as a regular fun movie.
exactly.
Like you
Yeah.
look at it, it's a flawed movie, but it's fun.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's you know, it's a joyride. And that's how I feel the film should have been a bit more, but then it tries to stretch its hands a little bit into too much,
Hmm.
and it's like, why are you trying to do that? It's
Yeah,
not necessarily how I would go about it. But there
but
was still some
yeah,
fun to be had.
yeah. I love Jason Momoa as Aquaman. I thought he was a real good choice.
He was. He still is a good choice. You can tell he's relishing in it, like he's having fun as, as Aquaman, but
And
he's
he
just
also contributed to the story as well. He was also credited for the story too.
he was. He was. So, yeah, I mean, you got to give him some credit though. He really did relish in it. He had fun with it while he could, but it just didn't
Yeah.
necessarily live up to the hype of what I think he was wanting it to be.
Exactly. I think other than that, I think that's pretty much it for this movie.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just not a bad film, but it's just very anticlimactic for the final work in a DCEU
Yeah.
movie.
The DCEU had its fun. I'll say this.
Mhm.
It had its fun for 10 years, but I'll say this. They should have the DCEU should have planned their movies out better. They should have planned better instead of like
Yes,
catching up to Marvel.
exactly. And that's what it felt like this series was doing, was catching up a lot with Marvel and trying to, keep up with whatever it was doing, which it should not have done that. It should not have done that at all, in
Yeah,
my
it
opinion.
should not have done that. It should not have done that at all. They should have saved the Justice League after the solo movies of Wonder Woman. Well, obviously they already did Wonder Woman before Justice League, but they should have done the team up after Aquaman, Flash, and Cyborg.
Hmm.
Cyborg
Exactly.
got dirt. They did Cyborg dirty. They
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, they did. They really did.
Yeah.
Uh, but what are you gonna do? It's the end of another DC shared universe, and
Hmm.
now it's time to move on to whatever James Gunn has envisioned for
Yeah.
his.
I hope James Gunn could carry this universe. I hope he does. I'm having very little faith in James Gunn's universe, especially how he came in and like literally wiped the floor with with the rest of the movies. But there is still some hope that he can make a good universe.
Yes, there is still some hope, and I like James Gunn as a filmmaker. As a person, that's to be determined, but you know, as a guy who crafts film, I think he can definitely make an interesting movie universe.
I think so too. I think so too. But other than that, rest in peace to the DCEU.
Yep. Rest in peace. You tried to keep up with Marvel. You had a few good years, but was not to be.
Yeah, what's that to be? But other than that, I think we'll wrap. I believe we'll wrap on this episode. And to anybody who was listening to this episode, what did you all think of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom? Did you like the movie? Have you seen the movie? I'd love to hear your thoughts. But anyway, do you also agree with our thoughts too on this movie as well? I mean, love to hear your thoughts as well. But yeah, but Matt, any final words to say before we close off?
I just want to say thanks again for having me on. Been looking forward to doing this for a while, and great to get on your podcast, and hope to do it again in the future sometime soon.
Yep. I hope to do more. Hope to do more episodes with you in the future.
Definitely, definitely. I'm looking forward to it.
Yep. But anyway, that is a wrap on this episode. Thank you all for tuning in to Codo Cinema. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codo Man.
And Matt Lauterbach here.
Remember to watch movies and stay positive.